Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today, very special day, just before the MLB trade deadline coming up tomorrow, and we got a lot of news trickling in all day. All day, you see moves being made, and so far, from the New York Mets perspective, the biggest news coming out of Metland is we DFA'd Jake Diekman. So that's the biggest news as of now in Mets land, but no worries. No fear. We have at least 24 hours left for David Stearns and this organization to make their mark as we march to the playoffs. And I got to say, it is extremely significant because no matter what we thought in the beginning of the year, I believe we're ahead of schedule. We're 5 games above 500, and we're certainly moving in the right direction. I think this offense is much better than we could have ever expected, but we find ourselves in a position where we can seize the moment. We have an opportunity to add, and we have an opportunity to add big, whether it's going to be a Blake Snell, a Jack Flaherty, somebody of that magnitude, a Scooble from Detroit. I mean, David Stearns has to really evaluate what he wants to do. I mean, since we lost Kodai Senga, quite honestly, it was a slap in the face. It was a hit. But that's what happens in seasons. It's not always going to be perfect. But we have an opportunity that this happened before the trade deadline. Imagine this happened next week and we lost Kodai Senga and we had no opportunity to really get much better. I mean, it's such a blessing that I've been thinking, okay, you know what? Yeah, it sucks we lost Kodai. It really does. I mean, especially he pitched phenomenally the other day. It actually makes you feel that much worse. But you know what? We still have an opportunity to get that pitcher. Get that pitcher who, I want a top pitcher. I don't care right now. Snell, he's not really performing, he should be performing. That's fine. His value is a little lower than it should be. Good. David Stearns, put a package together and get it done. So what we're going to be doing is we got to evaluate. If you're a New York Mets front office right now, you got to really be evaluating your prospects because you can't keep them all. You can't keep all your prospects. Ask Brian Cashman. David Stearns has to figure out which road do I want to go down? Do I want to go down to prospect hoarding? And, I don't think we're going down that road because we made some nice moves the last couple of days. So I don't think that's the road we're going down. But what level of prospects are you willing to give up at this point in time, right? I feel there's some prospects that are untouchables, like Brandon Sprout. You don't want to give up maybe a Jet Williams. You don't want to give up maybe a top level 4 or 5 guys. But then you get to that next tier, and if you're going to get me a top pitcher that's going to elevate us to a playoff competitor, I think you got to do it. The 2023 Rangers, what happened? Nobody thought they would win the World Series. Why can't we be the 2023 version of the Rangers? The 2024 Mets, we weren't supposed to have this good or dynamic of an offense. Mark Vientos, he wasn't even on the roster in the beginning of the year. Francisco Alvarez, okay, he's had a couple bumps this year, but he's going to be an elite catcher, and he does the intangibles. I forgot, one of our good members brought up the other day, mentioned all these great things that a guy like Francisco Alvarez does to help us win. Another key guy who contributes to a winning team. Francisco Lindor, we quite potentially have the MVP, on our team. You have to seize the moment. There's no guarantee next year, even if we have money coming off the book, there is no guarantee that Lindor is going to be healthy. There's no guarantee that any new pitchers we acquire or players we acquire, they will be healthy. We have an opportunity right now, and despite losing Senga, we got here without Senga. And the last 2 games, we lost to the Braves. But I gotta think, as a Met fan, it was a gut punch. It was a gut punch losing your ace. We were preparing this whole year to get him back. Okay, that's fine. We were off for a game the last 2 days. We were playing the Braves. They have a decent pitching staff. They can't hit well, but they got a good pitching staff. So we didn't play our best, but that's fine. That's fine. All right, just want to say, hey, what's up, everybody who just came in? Yuki, how's it going? Carlos, Kevin, what's up? Juan, hopefully everybody's doing well. I know it's an exciting time. I've been checking my phone all day, trying to figure out when are we going to make the move and what type of move are we going to make. If we go back to, let's say, the Jesse Winker trade, I saw a lot of feedback. I would say probably 70% of Mets fans were happy, but there was a good contingent of Mets fans who said he's not good enough. He's not a good enough bat. I'll say, you know what? If we were holding back our assets and we got a player like Jesse Winker that I was happy with, Jesse Winker, no matter what you think about him, that guy can get on base. And he has the type of attitude that I love to have in our locker room. So he's a good player to have in the locker room. He gets on base, and I feel he's the perfect piece where we didn't have to give up great value. We gave up Tyler Stewart. He was probably our 7th or 8th ranked pitching prospect, right? So he wasn't a top pitching prospect. He was probably ranked toward our 20th best in our farm system. But you got to give something. But we didn't give a great prospect for him. He wasn't an elite prospect. So the value that we gave up, I felt was very fair to get a guy like Winker. So that was my agreement on that. Explosive, you're right. Annie Martino said Mets aren't getting rid of top prospects, so I don't see them making any major move if that's true. Well, you know what? We got to see what happens. And you don't want to show all your cards. So whether that's true or not, I mean, if that's true, that would kind of go back to the beginning of the season when David Stern said the goal of this season is to, number one, get to the playoffs, and number two, to develop our prospects. But here's the thing where I'm going a little off of that. We are ahead of schedule, and the landscape in Major League Baseball is different. It's unique. Since there's more teams eligible to make the playoffs, there's more teams that feel like they're in it. That means the competition, the competition is really more or less spread out. There's a lot of moves. There's a lot of teams who feel like they're in it. In fact, there are some teams that I feel like it's such a good seller's market who have taken the opportunity to unload players because there's so many other teams who still believe they're in it. Like the relief pitcher Price, like what the Phillies gave up for Estevez, I felt that. I'm like, wow, those were two good quality pitchers for a guy who's going to be a free agent next year. I'm like, that's a high price tag. You compare that to what we gave up for Stanek, and I'm not saying Stanek this year is performing like Estevez, but we gave up a lot less of a package than what the Phillies gave up for Estevez. So it's all what David Stearns feels. It's it's cost versus value. How much are you going to have to give? And what are you getting back? What's the value back? Are you going to be getting a pitcher? Is he going to be a free agent next year? Are you going to have the pitcher for 2 or 3 years remaining? Like a guy like Skubal, a former Cy Young Award winner, a guy who was hurt in the past. That's a guy that if you want to build a package around Acuna, yeah, fine. I'll take a chance like that. But it really depends on how much the cost. And, we haven't seen David Stearns willing to give that high cost yet, but that's fine. I think it's smart. I think David Stearns has a plan. And thus, going forward, everything has really kind of worked. Everything's worked. Whether you go from backup catcher to Torrens, and, I think that was a genius move, getting Torrens for cash. And I always say having two catchers is so damn important throughout the course of a major league season. I mean, you go to Atlanta when they have Sean Murphy and Travis d'Arnaud, they're basically the example of that. So there's a lot of good things happening. What's up, Johnny? How's it going? All the teams are making some prominent moves. I'm sure our team will. We need a top pitcher that can go 7 innings every start. And, that's where I think, a guy like Andy Martino, if we all remember, Andy Martino said a lot of things before this season started. He said the Mets wouldn't spend any more than $10 million. He says a lot of things that, remember, irk Mets fans. He's not going to give you positive news, in my opinion. He doesn't report, he doesn't kind of like, if it's not a legit thing, he's not going to give you a rumor that's positive. He'll give you rumors that are hard to prove, that'll always skew more towards negative. That's what I found with Martino. But at the end of the day, we have to remember, Stearns and Steve Cohen said we're going to be opportunistic. We're going to be opportunistic. So if we're up against the trade deadline and it's going to take a package of Acuna, maybe some of the guys we got last year, like a Rodriguez, I don't know. I wouldn't want to give up a Blade Tidwell, but let's just say our second tier level of prospects, if it takes 3 or 4 of those guys, I would have to heavily evaluate it. I'd give up a little more or less for a guy like Blake Snell, but then there's also ways you can get creative. What about, like, if you're dealing with Detroit, Kenta Maeda? Kenta Maeda is signed through 2025. He stinks this year. He sucks. His pitching ERA is close to 6. He's making $10 million next year. $10 million to the Mets is nothing. If it's something, you take back Skubal, you take back Kenta Maeda, maybe the cost will be a little less because you're taking money. $10 million to us, even if Maeda stinks, he's an extra pitcher, and if he doesn't do anything, we'll just eat up the $10 million. It's not a lot of money, and I think it's worth it to get a guy like Skubal. So we're going to see how creative a guy like David Stearns is going to be. And I'm excited to see how things eventually work out. Okay. Explosive. You know what? I wrote down 2 guys I would be happy with getting. 2 guys. The 2 guys I'd be happy with getting, one of them was Chris Bassett, and the other one was let me see. But Chris Bassett, I think, would be a phenomenal choice. A phenomenal choice. We know right off the bat, he's already done it here before. He's already been successful. This year he's having a decent year. I believe his ERA is still under 4. We know he could do it in New York, and I think he elevates his game kind of in the big spots. So Chris Bassett, I believe, would be a phenomenal pickup. A phenomenal pickup. And the other guy, I kind of, I had on my list, but, I'm not really sure what the price would be. So I saw I had him crossed off. I had Tanner Scott. I don't think it was moved. Tanner Scott, he's on the Marlins. He's that fireballing lefty. He's going to be a free agent next year. I don't know what the price would be right now for a guy like that, but he's a guy, if you got a Tanner Scott and a Chris Bassett, and that was your last 2 moves, I'd be happy to go to war with that. Plus, knowing you got Kodai Senga potentially coming back at the end of the year. So those 2 moves, I think, would be good. So Michael Barron, Chris Bassett, great move. What's up, Daniel? Love the Dekman news. A lot. See, you know what the thing is? I love how a lot of Mets fans like rally around the guys they don't like. Last year, it was Vogelbach. This year, it seems to be Dekman. So, I mean, hopefully Dekman can get it together with his career. It just didn't seem more or less to work out for him. Juan, you're right. I don't want to see McGill. I don't want to see Peterson anymore. Enough of that. Get good pitchers. We can actually win it all this year. And Juan, perfect. I agree with you. I can't agree with you enough. At the end of the day, we have an opportunity. Let's not go with the Cashman philosophy. The Cashman philosophy is let's save our prospects, because Cashman said this in 2017 and 2018. Cashman had the opportunity to make big moves, but he said to everybody very smugly, he goes, guys, I don't want to win one championship. I want to win championships, right? How did that work out? 7 years later, you won squat. So if there's an opportunity to seize the moment, and we've seen teams like the Diamondbacks, the Phillies, teams that nobody thought can go to the World Series, nobody thought can run the gauntlet in the playoffs, and things happen. 2 days ago, and we're not far from this, we were in the first wild card position. Only 3 teams were ahead of us in the National League. So we're not that far from that. In fact, I feel right now we have, with the Braves having a lot of injuries, we're essentially the 3rd best team in the National League, especially if we finish the trade deadline off strong. Jesse Winker, great clubhouse guy. I'm going to keep saying, on-base machine guy. I love this move. The value we gave up, as I said before, wasn't crazy. So keep building. I really hope that we continue to keep building off this good trade deadline thus far. If we don't do anything before the deadline tomorrow, I would say, David Stern's got a C+. But I firmly feel that we're gonna make special moves here. We're gonna make special moves. Jazz Chisholm played on his first day as the Yankees. I didn't pay attention to that, but Jazz Chisholm, I was never really a Jazz Chisholm fan. I feel like he's a guy that's not even. I feel he's a below average major league guy. A couple of years ago, I think the first time I saw him is when he hit an inside pitch up and in, 100-mile-per-hour pitch up and in from Jacob deGrom, and he pulled it down the right field line. That was my first kind of view that I saw Jazz. And he, a couple of years ago, he had a phenomenal year. But, the last couple of years, he was really trickling off. And, I didn't really think he was that great of a player. In fact, I thought he was under a league average. So hopefully he does okay in the Yankees. The Yankees think that, him playing with the short right field, it'll lead to him being, having more home runs. But Jazz Chisholm's not a home run hitter. So, good luck with that. Johnny, you're right. Stewart and Diekman got option. I hope Ottavino is next. I have no doubt that Ottavino's going to be DFA'd very soon. I really don't. Yeah, and here's the thing, the main difference between Stearns and Epler, and this is actually a good point. The main difference between Stearns and Epler is Stearns in a second, if a guy he acquired through trade, through free agent pickup, if it doesn't work out, Stearns is going to the next guy. He's almost sort of like playing fantasy baseball, and I like it. And it shows guys who are here, you have to perform. Stewart, he didn't do this year. He last year he played well. This year he did not. He did not deserve to be here. He was only here this year because he played well last year. And, that's what happens. You're done. Next man up. Yeah, Juan. So, Eric Fetty. Okay. So Eric Fetty is a bit of I don't want to say an anomaly, but I believe he pitched in Korea, and so he was away from MLB a couple years. And before he left, he was horrible. He wasn't a good, well sought after major league ball player. But got to give the guy credit. He came out. He worked on a sinker, his cutter. He has a sweeper. He worked on a few new pitches, and he became a different pitcher. So the Cardinals have traded for Eric Fetty. And, they've made an aggressive move. The Cardinals are in it, and, they acquired Eric Fetty. We'll see how that works out. But I believe that we have to make that extra move, especially knowing now we don't have Senga, McGill not cutting it, and Peterson not cutting it. You just saw in the last 3 days a snapshot for David Stern. This is why, if we don't do well in the second half of the year, we don't have Senga, McGill's not there, and Peterson's not there. Good. We all get to see that before the trade deadline. Great job. Now, a guy like McGill, McGill should really take a lesson from Eric Fetty, a guy that just went away to kind of work on his craft. And I'm not saying for McGill to go away, but I'm saying McGill, I believe, even Peterson to some extent, McGill has a lot of potential. The guy throws 96, 97 miles per hour he can touch. And, if he develops a sinker, a cutter, if he changes a few things up routine-wise, I think this guy could be a lot better. But at this moment in time, he is not there. He's not there. It's upsetting, but he's not there right now. Okay, A1, I'll give you my thing on Crochet. I don't think Crochet was traded as of yet. I was looking at that news earlier. If Garrett, but the thing, I put out a video on Garrett Crochet. So the thing about Garrett Crochet is right now, as we stand, he's having a great year. But Garrett Crochet has thrown more innings this year than he has in his entire career. So, and he's only made 21 starts in his whole career, right? So he's got 21 starts as a starting pitcher. Now, he has made demands. And he has said, whoever he goes to, if they make the playoffs, he's not pitching unless they give him an extension. Now, he's on his, he's got 6 years of, if you're a rookie, you have 6 years until you're a free agent. He's got 3 years left until 2027. So he's not even close to being a free agent, yet he has the nerve to demand a new team to give him an extension. And he's only made 21 starts. So I know he's a talented guy. I know he's having a good year, but I'm just a little concerned how that would play in a clubhouse with such a good culture as ours. That's my opinion. If they can work out the details beforehand, where he'll pitch in the playoffs or they'll limit his innings. But then if they limit his innings, then his value goes down. So that's a bit of a tricky situation the way I'm looking at it. If there are details out there that I'm not aware of or certain things that can be resolved, then I'll feel a little differently. But I just don't feel that plays well in the clubhouse when you have a guy who's making demands. I want the money in his first day at a new team. I don't know. Check one thing out. It's funny. I was looking at a list and it was on from July 11th and it had the top 50 players, MLB players who were predicted to be traded. And there's so many guys that were on the list that have been traded already. I mean, that's good. It's been a very active Major League Baseball deadline. And, we've made our, a couple moves. Matone, Stanek, and as recently, obviously, our move the other day. Where is this? But like I said, I believe we need two more moves right now. We honestly we really need to kind of seize the moment. And I wrote down, like, we have a bunch of prospects right now. I really wouldn't mind trading. Honestly, I wouldn't mind trading. You know, Jesus Baez, Jeremy Rodriguez, even guys like Nolan McLean, Ronnie Mauricio, I kind of like Luis Angel Acuna. If you're getting that big picture, we got prospects, and these aren't our top echelon prospects. I can understand if you want to keep Jonah Tong, if you want to keep Brandon Sprout, if you want to keep Christian Scott, if you want to keep Jet Williams, if you want to keep our top guys, that's fine. But don't hug your prospects. As Juan, you said, don't hug your prospects. Okay, no two Baez trade. Don't give up a Pete Crow Armstrong for a Javier Baez. But that's a different type of trade. You're not going to give up your top prospect for a 2-month rental. That's going to be silly. If we were going to give up any prospects, it would be for pitching, and for more pitching. Now, people who were upset that we didn't get a guy that was better than Jesse Winker, I'd rather save my top prospect that I'm willing to trade to get pitching. We already had a top offense. Jesse Winker is there to supplement it. I'm not relying on Starling Marte, but he could come back. You got guys in the minor leagues on your squad who could help you. You got Luis Angel Acuna right now in your minor leagues who could be a bench piece at the end of the season. So you got guys who can supplement your guys on the bench and who could come up and help your team offensively. We don't have the same in our minors to help our pitching staff, unfortunately. So we have to go out there, supplement our talent, and we have the opportunity, as I keep mentioning, to get a guy like, I know I keep mentioning Screwball. I know it's going to be tough. You get a Blake Snell. You get a Jack Flaherty. You get a top guy. You get one of the top guys who we can have confidence in it. And Blake Snell, he's not having the best year. How much could it possibly cost you to get a guy like Blake Snell? I would definitely explore that. Okay, so you're right. PCA trade was not a bad trade. For the Cubs, probably it wasn't a bad trade. For us, Baez for 2. I know Baez had a good 2 months, but where did it really get us? If it was a finishing piece and Baez, if we got deep in the playoffs, that's how I'm evaluating the trade. I'm evaluating the trade not if the guy's going to be productive, but how the guy helps our team achieve our goal. Whether you want to get deep in the playoffs or you want to win the World Series. I know a lot of evaluators say it's tough to win the World Series. Obviously, one team wins the World Series, but at the end of the day, you want to advance deep in the playoffs so that next year you can continue to build on that success. Now your team, your youngsters, Mark Vientos, Francisco Alvarez, they have had that playoff experience, and next year we can perform better and better and better. You want to have building blocks. When we got Baez, it seemed like, I think that was really the downfall. That's when Francisco Lindor and Baez were giving the fans thumbs down. It turned off a lot of Mets fans. We lost momentum. I really don't think that 2 months was a success. And then some other prospects, if other teams are interested. you got guys like Kevin Parada, Alex Ramirez, Marco Vargas that we got from the Marlins last year, Ronald Hernandez, Justin Jarvis, Tyler Stewart, we just traded, Mike Vassell, Dom Hamill. We have a huge list of prospects. Not all these guys are going to pan out. Not all these guys are pan out. I hope today we are putting packages together for a starting pitcher. I hope that we're doing that right now, because imagine we make a trade. Forget about it. Let's say we make a trade. Let's just say we make a trade for Blake Snell. What do you think that does to our team, who were hoping Kodai Senga would come back and lead the rotation, who the bullpen were hoping that we get another guy to eat up innings? That would really give our team a boost. Our team is built on so much damn momentum. Like I've seen in all the year, the first 2 months were tough. JD Martinez wasn't there the first month. We had the injury to Francisco Alvarez. Pete Alonso was struggling. Lindor was struggling. Nimmo was still struggling. Then we gained momentum when Lindor moved to the leadoff spot. Nimmo started getting hot. JD Martinez showed why we got him this year. Mark Vientos showed us why he should have been here from day one. We are such a momentum team. If we get that starting pitcher, that ace, that we know will be there for the playoff run, I'm telling you, this team will galvanize. This clubhouse will galvanize. We do this for the rest of the season. We get more pitching help to give this team an extra boost. Remember how that boost that Cespedes gave the team in 2015? Remember that extra boost? Everybody played better. Daniel Murphy, I don't know what the hell happened to him, but he turned into a mutant in the playoffs. We need to get that type of Yoenis Cespedes type presence, but you get that presence as a pitcher. We need that type of pitching help right now, because Kodai Senga, we got to move on. He's not going to be here for 2 months. We still need to replace that ace potential. Luis Severino, as good as he's been, he's a lot better as a 2 and a 3 than he is as an ace. All right, and he's a good player pitcher. I have confidence in him. I think he's figured a lot of things out, but I can't rely on Kodai being here for the playoffs. I can hope he'll be there for the playoffs, but as we know, hope is not a good strategy. Hope is not a good strategy. So, therefore, David Stearns must trade for one of these pitchers. Who asked about? Let me figure. Okay, somebody just asked me, or they asked me about Jameson Taillon before. Jameson Taillon, he's having a great year. He's on the Chicago Cubs. If it was 2-3 weeks ago, I would say that that's a possibility, but based on the fact of the Cubs' recent activity, I don't feel that the Cubs are going to be sellers, so I don't think Jameson Taillon is a possibility right now. Okay, this is actually all right. Trade for Skubal and Baez. Okay, now the thing that would make that interesting, and I'm going to bring it up for everyone that doesn't know, Baez's contract, I believe it goes way out. Let me see how many years left, and he's making like $25 million a year. So you would be eating I would hope Detroit would eat some of that contract, but that would be a way to entice the Tigers to make that trade. And we're one of the only franchises to do it. But let me see what the contract looks like. So Javier Baez. All right, so Javier Baez is signed through 2027. So he's making $25 million this year, $25 million in 2025, $24 million in 2026, and $24 million in 2027. So it's 48. So about 70 to 75 million dollars left after this year. You have 70 to 75 million dollars left after this year. So obviously, who would want to take on that contract? Who would want to take on that contract? If it means that we have to give up not too much in the prospect wise, I mean, you would have to evaluate it. I see that as it's going to be very hard to kind of pull off, especially since we weren't trying to add money. But if you have that much, I don't know. Scooble, he has been injured. It's tough. It's really tough. He's the Cy Young Award winner. Is he worth eating up an extra 70 million? I don't know. I don't know. It's a good proposition. That's a good proposition. Check and make sure I covered most of my notes. See, this is what I'm trying to wonder. How many of us, and we're going to figure out David Stern's philosophy on this probably very shortly in the next 24 hours. But what is their philosophy, the New York Mets right now? Is it still the philosophy to build talent of the young guys? Are we still going to learn more about like our young folks that we haven't learned about? Or right now, do we view this as a golden opportunity? Do we view this as a golden opportunity? And I say that honestly, we do have to view this as a golden opportunity because we are just so far ahead of schedule. But Stearns is a value guy, a value and cost guy. So it's really tough. It's really tough. But at the end of the day, I think we need that top starting pitcher. So anybody think like right now, like who, if anybody who, let's try right now. Who could really think of a name right now that really hasn't been mentioned? Because that's what I'm thinking. There might even be somebody out there, and I'm hoping Stearns is trying to uncover somebody that none of us think are available that, we would think, oh, that's a good move. Like Chris Bassett a couple years ago, I didn't hear anything about Chris Bassett, and that ended up turning out to be a pretty darn good move. I mean, Chris Bassett on the Mets, I thought had a really good year, except I think he had one bad start at the end of the year versus Atlanta. But other than that, Chris Bassett was a phenomenal move. I think we gave up JT Ginn. JT Ginn, I haven't heard of him in a while. I don't think he's panned out to be anything special. But if we could somehow make a move like that, that would be freaking phenomenal. Freaking phenomenal. Hey, yeah, Daniel. So Jamison Tyone, I just kind of looked at that. He's on the Cubs. He's having a great year. A couple weeks ago, that would have been great. But the Cubs look like with their recent moves, it looks like they're going to be in it as buyers. If they decide to sell up a few pieces, that would be great. Jameson Tyone would be a good addition, but I just don't think they're going to be selling right now. Hey, what's going on, Robbie? How's it going? Juan, how Yankee fans love brooms. I said this at the beginning of the year. I really like. If anybody wants to check, just to check me on this, I said this before the season started that the Yankees and the Mets currently would be better this year than the New York Yankees. Currently would be, and in 4 games, it wasn't really a competition. Unfortunately, I was expecting a little more from the Yankees. I was expecting a lot more. I mean, that lineup, besides Soto and Judge, there just wasn't really much punch there. There really wasn't. And you could kind of see in 2 or 3 games, the Mets just blew it open. So, the Yankees are going through a rough stretch right now. There's only one team in all of baseball in the last 6 weeks that 6 weeks that have a worse record than the Yankees. So, it happens. We've been through it as well. Right now the Yankees have to, maybe Jazz Chisholm gets them going. This weekend wasn't as bad for them. So who knows? Maybe we'll end up having a Subway Series again. BMW, to get starting pitchers, you must give up prospects. I mean, obviously, you probably mean top prospects. Yeah. So we honestly, the trades that I have here, I'd be honestly, all of us would be willing to give up prospects. Everybody's probably, I'm sure, attached to different level of prospects. Like, one of the prospects I've wanted to see this entire year that I haven't seen is Blade Tidwell. He's a guy I'd want to see. But, if you're going to get a top pitching prospect, if you're going to get a top pitcher back, I give up a guy like Blade Tidwell. I give up a guy like Luis Angel Acuna. Brett Beatty, I mean, it looks like he's had, better days. But, at least in the minors, not in the majors. We have Jesus Baez, Jerry Rodriguez, Nolan McLean, Ronnie Mauricio. If you can build a package around something like that and you're happy with it, then you do it. If the Detroit Tigers want 3 or 4 prospects you don't want to give up, then you don't do it. There's 2 teams that have to agree. It's got to make sense for the Tigers. It's got to make sense for the Mets. It's got to make sense for any 2 franchises that make a big blockbuster trade. Like the Dodgers, they just did a 3-way trade with the Cardinals, and Fetty went to the Cardinals, and the Dodgers, they gave up a prospect. They gave up Miguel Vargas, and he went to Chicago. But those 3 teams got something that they desired. Chicago got prospects. Cardinals got a starting pitcher. And then you had the Dodgers. They got, extra help off the bench. They got a relief pitcher. So every team needs something different. We got to see if our farm system matches up with the team needs that we trade for. Yeah, I'm missing this. I'm seeing like a lot of Yankee chatter in the chat. Did the Yankees make any big moves yet? Or I know they got a Jazz Chisholm, but that's not a big move. See, here's the thing: the Mets set themselves up this year where there's really no pressure. As conversely with the Yankees went all in this year. They went all in. Getting Juan Soto, I respect the team for making a move like that. You gave up a lot of pitching prospects. You gave up a lot of pitching talent overall. But, to even make a move like that, to acquire one of the top players in the game, knowing that he's going to be a free agent next year, it takes a lot of guts. But thus far, conversely, that means you're all in for this season. So there's got to be a lot of pressure on Brian Cashman right now. And anybody that Brian Cashman calls, they know how desperate he is to want to make a trade, because there's a lot on the table right now. You got a $600 million contract that you're going to have to force to give Juan Soto, or even $500 million. So there's really a lot of pressure on the Yankees. So that's why I respect them so much for making a trade like that. But, to then go out and perform, so poorly in the last 2 months, it's a bit of a shocker, quite honestly. Daniel, how pathetic do you have to be a fan of a team to go into another team's chat? Well, you know what? Everybody's welcome, even the other fans. as long as we're nice to each other and kind of respectful. Yeah, obviously, be respectful. Be respectful. That's really the only thing we ask. Just like checking Twitter. I don't know if any new things happened. I don't think anything happened with the Mets thus far. No. MLB.com. Oh, wow. Okay, so Tommy Pham, he went back to the Cardinals. That's interesting. I mean, Tommy Pham, he's a nice player. He's a nice player. He netted us a nice return last year. He really did. So I know there was probably a little clubhouse drama with Tommy Pham, but at the end of the day, that's why sometimes you sign these veterans. If it works out, great. But at the end of the day, you can always trade them at the deadline for prospects. Yeah, last year we got Jeremy Rodriguez, and Jeremy Rodriguez, he was a 17-year-old kid last year. He's looking like a pretty nice prospect. So for 2 or 3 months of Tommy Pham on the Mets, the return we got was pretty nice. Now, a lot of people were, I would say, they were about like 40% of the fan base. They were sad in that, like, Michael Conforto hasn't, this, I don't know. I heard some rumors about Snell and Conforto potentially going to the Mets in a package, even after we acquired Winker. I don't know if that's going to happen in terms of the Conforto part of it, but it was a lot of conversation about Conforto versus Winker. Who would you rather have? And I think in reality there was really no competition between Conforto and Winker. You got this guy we got. He's almost a 400 on base guy, potentially. You got Michael Conforto, who he had a lot of good years here, but there were a lot of times where he came up short. He's batting 225, and I feel just bringing him back here, although we would have a lot of unfinished business, it's not about Michael Conforto. It's about a team. And you got the guy in Jesse that is the right guy for this team. Michael Conforto is not a three-hitter anymore. He's not coming here to bat 3, bat 4. We need a guy who will supplement our team, who will, get a base, who will, we got run producers. We got guys who will knock guys in, who will get on base. We don't need Michael Conforto here right now with his 225 average. He's kind of like, he was great when he was here, but he was a bit mental. He was a bit mental, in my opinion. And I don't know. I'm just happy that we got the player that we got. Waker yesterday, if you saw him in interviews, did you see how excited this guy was to be a Met? I mean, I was actually surprised when I saw his interview. It's almost like he was a hometown guy. He left and came back. It was like a reunion about how happy he was to be here. But, he said that he saw us play when he was with the Nationals. And obviously, there's a connection with David Stearns. David Stearns saw him when he was with Milwaukee and when Winker was on the Reds. And he knows what type of talented guy this is. And I think it just works out so good. And you got to give David Stearns the benefit of the doubt. Most of the moves he has made has worked out, whether it's getting Severino, Manaya, Torrens. A lot of these small moves have worked out. So let's see this one. I think it's going to work out as well. Now we just need that big starting pitcher. Okay, that makes sense. Explosive. So Winker is from upstate New York. Okay, so in a sense, it was a reunion. Wow. So like Jesse Winker, he's had about 300 at bats, 81 hits, 11 home runs, 256 batting average, scored 51 runs, 45 RBIs, 14 stolen bases, 373 on base. And his OPS plus this year is 129. OPS plus 129. So he's about 29 points above league average. So, he's having a pretty good year this year. And he's a career 370 on base. And they said, I was reading an article that he had a shoulder injury years ago. It kind of hurt his power, but I think that's probably what caused him to elevate his on-base game. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. His slugging early on in his career was 529 in 2017, 2020, maybe when he was hurt, it was 2018 because it went down to 405, then 357. Yeah. No, it was 431, 473. His slugging in 2020 was 544. In 2021, it was 556. So, I mean, this guy can slug. He definitely can slug. He can hit about 20 home runs a year. It looks like he's set to knock in around 80 to 90 runs batted in. So that's important as well. And with Pete Alonso being very, very streaky, you definitely needed to add an extra bat. I was trying to evaluate the last couple of days. do we actually need to invest our assets or extra prospects in getting more help on the offensive side? But after seeing us kind of slump coming back from the All-Star game and having Jeff McNeil pick us up, and then seeing Pete Alonso continue to slump, Nimmo slump a bit, you definitely needed an extra stick, especially from the left side. Let's not forget that Jesse Winker, he's a lefty, so that was important as well. Now, as far as our other big acquisition this weekend, when we got Ryan Stanek, I got to say, everybody I'm pretty sure is familiar with his 2022 numbers with Houston when he won the World Series. His 2022 numbers in Houston are elite. He had a 1.15 ERA. And I mean, he was just lights out that year. I was thinking about this. If Diaz and Stanek go back to the 2022 versions of themselves, our bullpen, is getting, is much improved, can be elite. If you had these two guys revert back to their 2022 forms, which is not that long ago. It's a little over a year ago. So it's not like we're talking 5-6 years ago. You got two guys who can really. Stanek was complaining about back spasms. I don't know if that has something to do. In his last couple starts, that's when he really kind of, got rocked a bit. So I'm hoping they kind of fix that. Hey, Daniel. So Stanek looks like he wasn't happy about being in New York. Well, yeah, I know he was. That's funny because I was watching that, one of his interviews, and he was saying how, and he looked very confused. He was like, "Yeah, I didn't understand. The Mariners, they were supposed to be in it and buyers, but they traded me." So he looked a bit confused. But he said that the GM or the president over there likes to make a lot of moves. But regardless, he's a professional. I'm sure he'll be fine. He's going to a situation where he's going to be a competitor, and he's going to want to prove. He was going to want to prove the Mariners wrong, probably, and he's going to be a free agent next year too. So at the end of the day, Ryan's going to need to perform the best version of himself. That actually was a really good move. I really like that move. We gave up a low-level prospect who's probably going to be a 4th, 5th outfielder at best, for a guy who could potentially be an 8th inning guy, a guy who is a fireballer. I don't know. I love that move. And on his birthday too, Carlos. Yeah, definitely. Guy got traded on his birthday. Happy birthday. You're going to the New York Mets. But, the New York Mets, last 2 months, hottest team in baseball, folks. Hottest team in baseball. Whether you love them, we got a couple people in here who don't like the Mets. You love them, you're a Mets fan, you hate them. The Mets have been one of the best teams in all of baseball. And in fact, you can argue they've been the best team in baseball since June 5th. And it really shows you what type of mentality this team has, what type of group of guys this is. We were 22 and 33, 11 games under 500, and we were able to jump over 7, 8, 9 teams. We got to the number 1 wild card spot 2 or 3 games ago. We're going to get there momentarily. It's trade deadline time, so that's the priority. But we had a bump in the road with Kodai Senga. It happens. We have an opportunity to recover, an opportunity to get another starter before the trade deadline. I think David Stearns he's one of the top GM/presidents in all of baseball. We're not paying this guy $11 million for nothing. He loves to make moves. He loves to make trades. And I had a video when we got David Stearns, the history of David Stearns. In his first year with Milwaukee, he took over a crappy team. In that first year, he did a lot of evaluation. He turned over a lot of players. This year, this team has a lot more talent than the team he took over in 2016. Therefore, I believe that's one of the reasons why we're ahead of schedule. I think he was expecting 2 turnover guys like Pete Alonso, possibly Diaz. But since these guys gelled and grew as a team, it wasn't even a question. You couldn't trade a Pete Alonso. You couldn't trade Edwin Diaz. You can't trade anybody because this team has gelled. We're in it. We're in it to win it. Last year, I talked myself into saying the best thing is to trade guys and start over. It was tough. August and September, I'm not going to lie, it was tough to pay attention to the Mets because, we were out of it. And if we stuck with our guys, we probably would have made the playoffs because I forgot who made the last playoff spot, but they had like 84 wins or 83 wins. I think the D-backs had like 84, 83 wins. So, we could have made the playoffs if we stayed on that trajectory. But overall, we would have taken a hit for this year. So we reset. We got young prospects, and that's what I want to do. I want to flip those young prospects that we got last year. Ryan Clifford, I don't want to flip him. But if you want to flip a Luis Angel Acuna, possibly a Drew Gilbert, it's got to be a good return. It's got to be that starting pitcher that's going to help us now and in the future. But these guys, we got them last year for old, 39, 40-year-old Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. If we can flip those guys and turn that asset into a 25, 26-year-old top talented pitcher, then I got to say that's a hell of a job. Yeah, good point. I mean, it was a dumpster fire last year. A dumpster fire. It was August. I have a video against the Atlanta Braves where we were like shut out in a 3-game series, 36-3. 36-3. Anybody wants to check it out last year? It was crazy. I think I had 10,000 views from Atlanta Braves fans, right? It was nuts. We were getting made fun of, laughed at, stepped on, kicked down, and I'm like, I'm like, I don't know how long it's going to take for us to be respectable. Well, folks, we are already respectable months later. So that's why I have to give David Stearns all the credit in the world because he has turned this around in such a short period of time where we're able to compete with any team, any time. So that's why complete the mission. We don't know. Next year, you could acquire top talent and guys can get hurt or guys can underperform. You never know what happens. But we have I 100% feel we have a special team this year. This group of guys is special. They have gelled. And you don't get that. You don't get that with every team. Our 2022 team won 101 games. Our 2023 team, we stunk. Even when the teams are similar from year to year, things change. Dynamics change. Things happen that you don't expect. So if your team is going well, you just keep building on that success. Okay, so what Mets prospects are you willing to trade for Tanner Scott and Tariq Skubal? I'll tell you exactly who I'm willing to trade. Okay, guys, I wouldn't trade, and this is fairly obvious. We need pitchers. I'm not trading Christian Scott. I'm not trading Sprout. I'm not trading Ryan Clifford. I might trade. I might trade in the right package. Maybe if I have to give up less, I might trade Jet Williams, Drew Gilbert. So Jet, if I'll either build a trade around Jet Williams, or I'll build a trade around Drew Gilbert, or I'll build a trade around Luis Angel Acuna. Not two of those guys. I mean, it depends who it is. But let's just say I'm trying to get Scooble. He's a former Cy Young Award winner. He's been hurt. So I'll give Jet Williams, Jesus Baez, and two more lower level prospects. So you got a top three prospect depending on where you look. And then you got Jesus Baez and two other middling prospects. So that would be, but you can mix and match. If you want to give up Brett Beatty, they might not want Brett Beatty. They might want a guy like Blade Tidwell. I think you would have to give at least one person from your top tier. You got to give one person from your top tier level. Or then if you don't give one person from your top tier level, like a Jet Williams or a Drew Gilbert, then you would have to give two or three people from your second tier level, like a Luis Angel Acuna and a Blade Tidwell, or Jeremy Rodriguez. But then again, each team values our prospects differently. Maybe Baltimore might say Jeremy Rodriguez, we have them as a top 5 Mets prospect. Maybe Jeremy Rodriguez to the Detroit Tigers, they might think Rodriguez is a top 20 prospect. So, but that's what I would do. If I'm going to give a number 1 tier guy, like I rank our prospects in tiers. Daniel Mendoza, get a lot of credit. Yeah, so that's a great point. I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because Mendoza has gotten a lot of flack. He's gotten a lot of flack. He's taken a lot of hits for the bullpen last month specifically. But at that time we were really recycling. Guys were going down. Reed Garrett went down. Sean Reed-Foley went down. Edwin Diaz was struggling. Daniel Nunez, he was emerging, but we had a lot of uncertainty. Now, what David Stearns has done is he has built more certainty. I would say ever since we acquired Phil Matone a couple weeks ago, our bullpen has had, I've had a lot more confidence in the bullpen. We have Jose Budo out there who could be a long man. He's been pretty nasty with his changeup. Adam Ottavino, I'm not confident in him. Stanek, we got him. Let's see how he does. Danny Young and Alex Young. I got to say, those two guys, I've been watching them recently, and they've been nasty. Both those two guys, and it's been very small sample sizes, but those guys have given me confidence to have a little more confidence in them, because, both those guys have looked good. So if Alex Young continues to look good, Danny Young continues to look good, those are 2 guys. Edwin Diaz is 3, Stanek is 4, Phil Matone is 5, Jose Budo is 6. Then you got, coming back soon, Sean Reed-Foley, Reed Garrett, Daniel Nunez. You got a bunch of guys to throw out there, and guys that you can feel confident in. You got to remember, we had to rebuild this bullpen. This bullpen was completely different in the beginning of the year. We were relying more on Diekman. Diekman's gone. Brooks Raley is hurt. It's been really tough. And, one of my favorite guys that we always, wasn't the best, but Drew Smith, he was another guy you could rely on. He's out. Edwin Diaz wasn't having his Edwin Diaz-like year. This bullpen was completely rebuilt on the fly. I mean, you give that credit to David Stearns, but you give ultimate credit to Carlos Mendoza for holding this group of guys together. It'd be very easy for the lineup to say, or the starting pitchers to say, hey, the bullpen sucks, or, we'll get 6-7 runs a game and the bullpen will blow it. To keep this bunch of guys together and unified was extremely important, extremely key. And that's all Mendoza. Mendoza, a rookie manager. So that's why, in my opinion, he gets a lot of credit. I like Alex Young more than Danny. Yeah. I mean, I have a, when we got Alex Young, I had a video on him. I said he was a steal. I really liked Alex Young. He had a really great year this year in the minors. He was injured in the beginning of the year, so it was tough for him to get back. But once he's gotten back, for that to be like a waiver wire pickup, that was a phenomenal move. That was a phenomenal move. I mean, you see, he pitched 2 days ago. It was nasty. He should have had 3 strikeouts in the inning. He's got nasty stuff. Trying to see if it'd be nice for us to make some type of move right now. Whew. Let's see. Yeah, so if anybody wants to tune in, hopefully y'all tune in, but I know everybody's got stuff to do. But so later on, if we have a big move, we'll do another live stream. Then tomorrow I got work all day. So after 6 o'clock, I'm going to recap exactly what goes on. I'm hoping we have a big move. I'm hoping we have a couple nice moves to really kind of solidify this team. Hey, what's up, CeeLo? CeeLo, I haven't seen you in a couple months. What's going on? I'd rather see Budo than Lil Drip in the rotation. Honestly, I think a lot of us would feel that way. Just for anybody that aren't familiar, the Lil Drip should be Tyler McGill, and Tyler McGill, he's been struggling. Jose Budo, right? And this is why I feel we definitely need that starter, because right now having Budo in the pen as that long man, having him to be the insurance guy for any of our pitchers who have a bad game, I think it's so invaluable, super invaluable. You look at all the teams of the past who have been successful, they've always had that long man. I mean, like one of the first teams, one of the first long men that, I kind of like really was not fascinated, but I respected, was Ramiro Mendoza of the Yankees in the late 90s. Ramiro Mendoza, I remember spot started, and he always came in when, guys were, didn't have a good performance. You need somebody with that ability to spot start, and you need somebody with the ability who can stretch it out of the pen. You save your relievers from not, overusing the pen, and you're also an insurance policy for any starters who just have a bad game. Jason, I just realized you responded to my comment about Alex. No worries. You can always replay it too. So, what do you think of Jack Flaherty? You think Stearns is mentioning Tyone to take the focus after going after Flaherty? Well, hear this. I think Stearns is. I think he's a very cunning guy. I think he doesn't play like you don't really hear many rumors this year. Notice that from when Stearns signed on as president, you didn't hear many rumors. In the last couple of years, you might have heard rumors and stuff like that. There were leaks. This year, everything is solid tight. So if he's basically saying, here, look over here, when he's making a trade over there, I really wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. Jack Flaherty, he was a guy, I was actually bringing up his numbers earlier. Jack Flaherty, he's having a very good year this year. For anybody who's not familiar with Jack Flaherty, he plays for the Detroit Tigers. He's 28 years old. He's going to be 29 in October. He's 6'4". This year, Jack, he's 7-5 with a 2.95 ERA. He's pitched in 106 innings. His strikeout ratio is 11.2 batters every 9 innings. His overall career ERA is 3.64. So Jack Flaherty, he's a talented guy. He's a guy that I would go after. And in this situation, he'd be near the top of the rotation. He'd be, probably be slotted as a 1. He probably would be slotted as a 1. Contract wise, he's going to be a free agent next year. So he's basically essentially a rental. So whatever you give up right now, prospect-wise, you give up a Jet Williams, you give up a Luis Angel Acuna, you're getting this guy for 2 months. You might try to sign him. You're probably going to want to sign him, but just keep in mind, Jack Flaherty is going to be a 2-month rental. Let me get into his deeper numbers. See if I can bring this up. All right, so I'm going to bring this up if I know how to do this. All right, so this is Jack Flaherty's Baseball Savant for 2024. I always go back and I look at the advanced numbers for the last couple of years for these guys. Okay, so in 2019, everything. Okay, so this year in 2024, all the red means that he's more towards the elite. So for expected ERA, he's in the 89th percentile. So he's essentially 40 points above league average. Expected batting average against 219. He's in the 80th percentile. Fastball velocity. I always look at this too. I like to see how hard the guy throws. His fastball velocity, he doesn't throw that hard. He throws 93.3, which is in the 38th percentile. If we go over here, we see that his average fastball is 94. His repertoire is he's got a slider. He mostly throws fastball at a 94 miles per hour. Slider, he throws that 31% of the time. That's 85. And then he also has a curveball, a changeup, and a sinker. But predominantly, according to Baseball Savant, he throws a four-seam fastball and a slider. He throws that a majority of the time. Almost 75% of the time, he throws just 2 pitches. And he doesn't throw the ball that hard. So, that's kind of telling me that he really relies on movement. He relies on, and then you look down here, the chase rate. Chase rate is in the 79th percentile. Whiff rate, 94th percentile. K rate, 93rd percentile. The guy right here, this is very important. K rate and base on ball rate, 94th percentile. So he strikes guys out and he doesn't walk guys. So a guy who doesn't throw the ball hard, he needs to strike guys out and he needs to have control, which this is a perfect example of what Jake Flaherty has. Now you're asking me, would I want to give up a top prospect for Jake Flaherty for 2 months? That's the question. That's the question. It would really kind of depend. In my opinion, the best prospect that I would want to build a package around, I'm going to go to Luis Angel Acuna. Because, not that I don't have, value him. I just think the ceiling on our other prospects is a bit higher. Jason, that's not what I saw. In the highlights, he was touching 96, 97. Now, you're talking about Jake Flaherty? Because if you saw him touching 96, 97, what I was reading to you was his average velocity. So it doesn't mean he can't touch above 94. It just means that out of his average fastballs, they average 94, which, I guess if you're seeing 96, 97, 94 is 3 miles per hour less. So, that does seem like a bit of a distortion. Jack Flair. Okay. Yeah, that's from Baseball Savant. I haven't really watched too many games with Jake Flaherty, but I mean, maybe that's the good thing. Let me actually, you know what? Let me bring up one thing to that point. So Jake Flaherty this year, it's saying his average fastball's around 94. Let me see what it is last year. 93. Okay. Okay, I was trying to see if possibly each year he was raising his fastball velocity, because a lot of these guys have been like doing different things like at drive line, and they work with their arm and they were able to raise their velocity. I was thinking maybe this year he raised his velocity, but it looks like in terms of his lifetime average velocity, he's average around 93.6. So it's pretty in line with what his numbers say this year. But I guess he's a guy who can hit 95, 96, 97 on occasion to get, he must be. I mean, like a guy who traditionally strikes out 11 guys per, 9 innings is usually a guy who could throw the ball fairly hard. Explosive. Good point. The Orioles remain everywhere, chasing the best pitchers available, including Blake Snell, Tanner Scott, and Jack Flaherty. Now, I give the Orioles a lot of credit. Like, this is the year they may be going for it, putting pedal to the metal, but the Orioles have been building this for years now, developing their farm system. They've got a top farm system. They've obviously got a top major league team, and they feel that this is the year. And I 100% agree. And this is why I want the Mets to be ultra aggressive this year. It's because of the landscape of all of Major League Baseball. And this is evident of why there are so many damn moves this year. There are no dominant team. There's no dominant teams that you're like, oh, we can't get past. And also, it's been so obvious in the last couple of years that once the playoff comes, the Braves, the Dodgers, those are teams that traditionally you would think would win, last year or in 2022. And they haven't. They haven't. These big teams, these juggernaut teams, teams have gotten past. The D-backs got past the Braves, the Phillies. I'm sorry, the Phillies knocked out the Braves. So you got these teams that you didn't expect to get far, and there's awesome opportunity right now. The Orioles see the blood in the water. The Orioles see the Yankees aren't the Yankees of old. The Orioles see that the Rays are trading people away. The Orioles see that the Blue Jays aren't, really that great. So there is opportunity. The Mets should see the same thing. The Braves are not the Braves of old. The Braves don't have Acuna. They don't have Strider. They don't have Michael Harris. This is the perfect year. If you're going to go for it, you go for it now. You go for it now. The Dodgers, they have injuries all the time in their starting rotation. Next year, the Dodgers, they're going to have Ohtani in the rotation. This is the year that you go for it. Pedal to the metal. Come on, David Stearns. Let's go. Hey, what's up, Michael? Oh, hey, what's up, Steven? Sorry, I missed you. How do you feel about getting one more outfield bat? Now, the funny thing is, there was a rumor this morning about Blake Snell and Michael Conforto coming over. So I was thinking about that. And if we're going to have to give up extra assets like high level prospects, I don't think we need to. But if it's part of another package where we're getting a starting pitcher, and if it's something like that, I wouldn't mind it. But it's something I don't want to invest a lot of our resources in. I would rather us invest our resources in pitching, and more pitching. Opus broke that. Okay. Okay, so right now I'm gonna just drop off before I break something over here. But if anything happens, I'm gonna pop back on, and then I'm coming on tomorrow after 6 o'clock. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. Keep the notification on. Like on your way out. I appreciate every single one of you who helped us out with this great conversation. Hopefully the Mets do something big. Tonight, this is a game. I want to see Jesse Winker in the lineup. I want to see how the lineup looks. I want to see how we play. This is the start right now. This is the start. This is the beginning. And hopefully we add that extra piece and those extra pitches. So thank you, everyone, once again. And I will speak to everybody very, very, very soon.